Bismillahirrahmanirrahim. Now we've had a little bit of an absence, but we're going to start with some new material today, lesson number 10. And we were able to get an audio file for the exercises, and inshallah that should be up on our Yahoo group soon. So for those of you who were not able to be with us when we were doing the exercises for the last 3 lessons, you should be able to follow along with the answer key that's in written form, and also with the audio of our session going over the exercises. We'll start with new material today. We're going to slow down the pace a little bit. Several people have said that it's a little bit difficult to keep up with the material. So please don't feel that you have to pick up the pace. If something is still unclear to you, then don't be afraid to raise your hand and ask a question. In some cases, we won't be able to answer the question right there. In other cases, we might say that we'll talk about it at the end of class or in a future session. But please do give feedback as to what things are confusing and what things are clear, so we'll be able to take care of those things. Are there any questions before we begin today? That's a good sign. So we're going to talk today about the conjugation of some irregular verbs. Right now, all of us by now should have the basic conjugation of a fi'l madi memorized, which is the perfect verb, kataba, kataba, katabu, all of the 14 forms down to katabna. If you have that memorized, then you'll have the structure to figure out how other verbs are going to be conjugated as well. But Arabic has a good amount of irregular verbs. Some of them we've seen. One form of irregular verb is what is known as muda'af. Muda'af. And that comes from the root word ضعف. ضعف means double. So muda'af means doubled. That same root in Arabic also means weak. When I say da'if, it means someone who is weak. But this is a different meaning, it means doubled. There are some root letters in Arabic that are 3 letters, but 2 of those letters are the same. Okay, so if you see the word madda, how many letters are there in that word? 3. You might be tempted to say that there's 2 letters, right? Because your eyes see 2 letters and your eyes generally don't lie, but sometimes your eyes do lie. There are 3 letters. Mim, dal, what's the 3rd letter? Dal, right? Madda is the same as saying mad, da. But we write those 2 as 1. What is it called when we combine letters in that way? When we take these 2 dals and we write them as one word. Well, the dal will have a shadda on it. It's a doubled letter. But that combination, the word is called muda'af because it's doubled. The combination is called idgham. Idgham. To amalgamate or to bring together 2 things. And there's many different cases of idgham that we see in Arabic. It's not only the kind that we're looking at today. Some of them you're very familiar with. If you remember back to the first day of Arabic, you learn about sun letters and moon letters. Right? Moon letters are letters that when you add alif lam, all of the letters are pronounced. Like the word qamar, that's why they're called moon letters. Because the word moon in Arabic, qamar, begins with a moon letter. If I add alif lam to that, I pronounce all of those letters. Al-qamar. You will never write it like this though, because the hamza in al-qamar is a hamzatul wasl. It's a hamza that drops. It's not a hamza that's always pronounced. So you will never write a hamza on it. Right? That's why if I add a bi, I won't say bi al-qamar. I'll say bil qamar. That's why I don't say bi ismillah, I say bismillah. That's also a hamzatul wasl in ism. So it's pronounced. And then we have some letters, like the word shams. What happens if I add alif lam to shams? Do I say al-shams? Bismillah il-Rahman nil-Rahim? No, I say ar-Rahman ar-Rahim ash-shams. Right? So the lam is assimilated into the sheen, or the lam is pushed into and then lost within the sheen. Right? That's called idgham. So you're all familiar with examples of idgham. One case where we use idgham, or where we combine the two letters, is if there is a verb or a masdar in Arabic that has the second and the third letter being the same letter. When we put that masdar into a verbal form, it's combined. So, to look at examples of that question. The color is invisible. Let's see if this is better. So let's take a few examples. There's a masdar. Is that visible to everybody? White was better? Right, let's just take a minute or two to see which colors are better. So we have the option of yellow. We have which of those is yellow is best? Okay. So this is a masdar, madad. What would the verb look like? When we talk about a verb, we talk about the first form of the verb, the third person masculine singular. It will be madda. Normally, it will be on the pattern of kataba, qatala, fa'ala, madada. That madada is shortened to madda. So, another example. This is a masdar. Firar. Firar. What will the verb be? Farra. This is a masdar, surur. The verb, sarra. So you see how the masdar might be different, because there will be different patterns that the masdar will be on. But when we convert it to a verb, in all cases, we have the second and the third letter, which are the same letter. They are combined, and a shadda is put on that letter. So the shadda consists of a sukoon followed by a haraka. Just so you're aware, the first letter is called mudgham, the one that is lost, and the second letter is called mudgham fi, the one that is lost into, or that is assimilated into. So the first letter will be mudgham. And the second letter is called mudgham fi, assimilated into it. The meaning of the words in the previous sentences: madda means to stretch or to help. Farra means to flee or escape, to flee. And sarra means to make somebody happy. To give pleasure, to give happiness. One thing that's very highly recommended in Islam is idkhalu surur fi qalb al-mu'min, to cause happiness to enter into the hearts of a believer. And generally when people make fun of others and a group is laughing, they say that the excuse that I have is that I'm making everyone else happy. If it's at the expense of a person, it doesn't count. You don't get thawab for it. But to make others happy, to be a pleasure to be around, that is an act of worship in Islam. Idkhalu surur. Surur is happiness. So mudgham is the first letter. Mudgham fi is the second letter. The process is known as idgham. That process is idgham. And sometimes there is an idgham that is broken up. Right? So idgham is fusion. Am I getting that right? And then the reverse process, fission, would be fakkul idgham. Please do not create a mnemonic device for that in English. That is a process of opening something up. So if I have madda, there is idgham in there, and in certain cases that idgham will be broken up, and that would be known as fakkul idgham, to separate the pieces that have been brought together and to pronounce each letter separately. An example would be the word madad itself. Right? In that case, there is no idgham. Right? So there is a word in Arabic, mad, meaning stretching. That is with idgham. It's a noun. And then there is a word madad, which is with fakkul idgham, and that means usually military assistance or reinforcements. Both of them are nouns. One is with idgham, one of them is with fakkul idgham. In a single word, in a single root, you will have some words that are used with idgham and some that are used with fakkul idgham. In some cases, you can use both ways. Right? And so we'll talk about that not in the near future, but at one point there are certain verbs that can be used both ways. And there's a preference given in some cases to fakkul idgham, to separating the two letters. That's the way the Quran uses words that can be used in both ways. But the more common way to use it in Arabic, of course, is the reverse, because it's quicker and easier. So we'll talk about all of that in the future. But I want you to know the terms so that when we get to different examples, you'll be familiar with them. So what we're going to be dealing with the mudha'af words, the doubled letters, are cases where we are combining letters. But underlying that structure, it's still three letters that are in the root. And so underlying that structure, it's still like kataba, it's still like nasara. So if you look at the chart, verbs whose ayn al-fi'l and lam al-fi'l are the same, they're known as al-fi'l al-mudha'af, the doubled verb. In the perfect tense, in the madhi tense, verbs like this, they are conjugated according to the following pattern. the top row starting from the right, madda, madda, maddu. Right? The dals are brought together. Maddat, maddata. That's also very simple. They're brought together. But what you'll notice from the sixth form on is that there is fakkul idgham. Right? The letters are separated. And this is a case where they have to be separated. If you're interested in the philosophy behind why they're separated, it's because the second letter is sakin. And if the second letter is sakin, you can't bring the first letter together, because to bring the first letter into the second letter, you'd have to give it a sukun. Right? So if we look at the original word that we had, madada, I can easily give the second letter a sukun instead, and I can still pronounce it, madda, because the third letter still has a haraka, so it's pronounceable. That's the same thing. That's pronounceable. But what happens if I'm starting out with a form like, not like that, like madadna. Now my second dal already has a sukun. If I give the first dal a sukun as well, then I'll have two sukuns in a row. And Arabic can give you a whole bunch of unpronounceable, very difficult words, but they will not give you two sukuns in a row. That's one act of generosity that whoever invented Arabic made for people learning the language. You will not have two sukuns in a row. You'll never have to pronounce madna. So for that reason, they did not take away the fatha on the first dal. And it will always remain madad, na. And now all the way to the end of that conjugation, we have that same instance. So they will always be with fakkul idgham. And that's known as a wajib fakkul idgham, because you have to separate them. It's not wajib in the sense that you're going to sin if you don't do it. It's wajib in the sense that that's the only way that it's used in Arabic. So you'll say madadna, and then anta, madadta, madadtuma, madadtum, madadti, madadtuma, madadtunna, madadtu, madadna, madadna. So it's the first 5 forms that will be somewhat different. So that's one example of a verb that has the doubled letter. Some examples from the Quran. هُوَ الَّذِي مَدَّ الْأَرْضِ. He is the one who stretched the earth. مَدَّ الْأَرْضِ. To make the expanse of the earth. What form is that verb? Third person, masculine singular. Right? When I ask the form, you can just tell me the corresponding pronoun. So the pronoun for this is huwa. Inni dhanantu anni mulaqin hasabiya. Dhanantu is the verb, and is there idgham or is there fakkul idgham? Fakkul idgham, it's opened up. You see the dad, noon, and noon. And what is the form of that verb? Ana, I. Verily, I thought that I will meet mulaqi, from mulaqat, to meet. I will meet my reckoning, my account. وَأَنَّهُمْ ظَنُّوا كَمَا ظَنَنْتُمْ. So now we have two verbs, dhannu and dhanantum. What is the form for dhannu? Hum, they. Dhanantum? Dhanantum is antum, all of you, masculine. And verily, they thought like you thought, or they assumed as you assumed. كذلك حقت كلمة ربك. حقت. What form is that? Here. Thus came true the word of your Lord. وخر موسى صاعقا. خر, which is huwa. What does that mean? There's a joke told that there was a Persian who was reading the Quran and he saw this verse, Kharra Musa Sa'iqa. Khar in Persian means donkey. So he said somebody must have miscopied that verse because Prophet Musa was not known to have a donkey. Prophet Isa was known to ride a donkey. And so he crossed out Kharra Musa and wrote Kharra Isa. It has to be the donkey of Isa. That's not actually what Kharra means in Arabic. Kharra means to fall down in prostration. So Kharra Musa Sa'iqa. Musa fell down in prostration, losing consciousness. لقد من الله على المؤمنين. Verb there. Manna. And that means to give a favor. And it's what form? Huwa. Manna Allahu ala al-mu'mineen. What is the fa'il in that sentence? Is it huwa? Allah. And here, the fa'il is mentioned afterwards. That's why it says Allahu. And of course, if the fa'il were not mentioned afterwards, then the fa'il would have been huwa. Right? So if I say, for example, Inna Allaha manna ala al-mu'mineen. In that case, manna would have a huwa inside of it that refers back to Allah. Kalimatu is the fa'il in كذلك حقت كلمة ربك. So in that example, كذلك حقت كلمة ربك. حقت is a fi'il. Kalimat is fa'il. And it's mudaf. Yes. And Rabbi is mudaf ilay. And mudaf. And ka is mudaf ilay. And that is why kalimat and Rabb both do not have tanween, because they are both mudaf. Otherwise, I would say كذلك حقت كلمة. Well, Rabbuki would mean if I'm speaking to a woman, and Rabbuka is I'm speaking to a male. The pronoun is mabni. Yes. Yeah, it's referring to a male, and if it's referring to a male, it will always be ka, whether it's mudaf ilay or whether it's something else in the sentence. It doesn't make a difference. Okay, we can move on to bigger and better things. There are two types of verbs that we're going to be looking at in our grammar in Arabic. And there's different rules that apply to these two types of verbs. So you have to know the difference between them. There are some verbs that are known as lazim, And lazim in Arabic literally means to attach to something or to not let go of something. And so literally, lazim means, I guess you'd call it clingy. These are clingy verbs. And muta'addi means to go beyond. To go beyond. In both cases, it's referring to the fa'il. So the lazim verb, it clings to the fa'il. The verb has a doer, doesn't have anything else, so it sticks to the doer. And the muta'addi goes beyond the doer to a do'i, something that is the recipient of that action. And so it's an example of a lazim verb in English. He left. Right? I don't know where you came up with that beautiful example, but it's good. It's good. He left. You don't. Well, can I change that actually? He departed. Because in English, when I say he left, then you can say, what did he leave? Right? But if I say he exited or he departed, actually all of those can be used in transitive in English. But in Arabic, the corresponding verb is intransitive. So kharaja is intransitive. And you leave. Is there an intransitive verb in English that we have to? I exited the building, I left the building, I departed the building. I went. Right? So you don't, I went the building. When I say go, it's just to go. And so this is a valid example in Arabic, but it's not a valid example in English.
He smiled.
He smiled, right? So that's an example of an intransitive verb. You don't smile somebody, hopefully. You smile. Right? The other examples that we have in the book, qa'ada, he sat. There's no object that you can have after that. You won't say qa'ada Zaydun Amran. No. Qa'ada Zaydun, Zayd sat. That's it. In English, there are many verbs that are used both transitively and intransitively. That does exist in Arabic, but it's much less common. So in English, the word to sit is both. I can sit, or I can sit you down. It's both transitive and intransitive. But in Arabic, there's very, very few words that will be both transitive and intransitive. Generally, a verb will be one or the other.
How is jalasa
Jalasa
different?
and qa'ada both are intransitive. And they both mean to sit. There is a slight difference in meaning. Arabs have said that there are no two words in Arabic that are exactly alike. So there will always be a difference. In some cases it's a real difference. In some cases, just to keep that principle, they have to make up a difference. But between jalasa and qa'ada, the difference, if I remember correctly, that's mentioned is that jalasa simply means to go into a sitting position. Whereas qa'ada means specifically to sit down from a standing position. So if you're lying down and you sit up, then jalasa can be used. But that's not qa'ada. Qa'ada is only if you were standing up and then you sat down. But if you were startled out of your sleep and sit up, then I can say jalasta, I can't say qa'adta. That's, I believe, a real distinction. But there are some cases where distinctions are made that are not necessarily so real. They're treated as basically synonymous in Arabic. So julus and qu'ud can mean almost the same thing. So these are examples of intransitive verbs in Arabic. Kharaja, saqata, he fell. Sharofa, he became noble. And the transitive form of these same words will be made by changing the verb itself. A transitive verb is muta'addi. It goes beyond. the subject to reach an object. And examples of transitive verbs, sami'a, he heard, taraka, he abandoned or he left. Sorry? Daraba, that's our favorite verb that we use whenever we don't find another one. He hit. La'ana, he prayed against. Kataba, he wrote. Qatala, he killed. In all of those, there will be somebody who will receive, or something that will receive that verb. In some cases, the transitive verb in Arabic may not be transitive in English, or vice versa. A transitive verb in English might be used in a different way in Arabic. Right? So we had an example of that in English before, where to depart or to leave is used in a transitive sense, but it's used intransitively in Arabic. Kharaja. The reverse is true. In some cases it might be used transitively in Arabic, but intransitively in English. The example of that is our friendly ja'a. In Arabic I can say, ja'aka Zaydun. Zayd came you, meaning Zayd came to you. In English I don't use it transitively, I have to say to. Right, so the word ja'a or ata, which means the same thing. No doubt. Ata Zaydun al-masjida. Zayd came. In English I can't say he came the masjid. I have to say he came to the masjid. So if you want to know whether a verb is transitive or intransitive, you're not going to look at the translation in English, but you're going to look at the way it's used in Arabic, because it might be different. Most verbs, though, if they're transitive in Arabic, they'll be transitive in English. Right? He killed is transitive in both. He hit is transitive in both. He heard is transitive in both. But in some cases it might not be. So you have to make sure that you know the way it's used in the original language. Yes, you can say Ata Zaydun ila al-masjid. That can be used as well. Now, there are ways that verbs can be modified to convey different meanings. One of those modifications that's very common in Arabic is what's known as ismul fa'il. Ismul fa'il is a noun that denotes the doer of a verb. There is a difference between ismul fa'il and fa'il. Don't confuse the two. Ismul fa'il is a noun that refers to somebody who did the verb that the noun is made from. So if the verb is kataba, then katib is ismul fa'il. Right? It's ismul fa'il because it refers to somebody who does the action kataba. Correct? In a sentence, that word katib might be an object, a maf'ul. Right? So if I can say, darabtu katiban, I hit a writer. Katib is ismul fa'il, but in that sentence it is maf'ul, it is an object. Because I am doing the hitting and the katib, unfortunately, is receiving the hitting. Or I can say that madahtu katiban, I praised a writer. Madah means right, praise. Right? In that case, katib is ismul fa'il, but it's maf'ul in the sentence. So maf'ul or fa'il refers to the usage of the word in a sentence. It can be fa'il or it can be maf'ul based on the sentence. But ismul fa'il does not need a sentence. That word itself, it's doing the verb that it's derived from. The verb that is implied in the root. Kataba. Right? So qatil. What does that mean? Killer. Qatil is the doer, right? The doer of killing. That can be a fa'il. Ja al-qatil. The killer came. It's ismul fa'il, and it's also a fa'il in that sentence. But qatil, which is ismul fa'il, can also be a maf'ul. La'antu al-qatil. I prayed against or I cursed the qatil, the killer. In this case, I am the fa'il, la'antu, and al-qatila is maf'ul. Because I am doing the imprecation, qatil is receiving. The difference is clear? Maybe? Partially clear? Tomorrow morning, inshallah, when we wake up, it'll be clear. Just remember that ismul fa'il refers to, it's not referring to a sentence, it's referring to a word itself. And fa'il or maf'ul, that refers to a sentence. So the active participle, it can be made from all verbs, whether the verbs are transitive or intransitive, all of them have a fa'il. Qa'im is from a transitive verb, standard. Shakir, thanker. Nasir, helper. Qatil, killer. Some of those words are transitive, like Shakir, Nasir, Qatil. They're formed from transitive verbs. Some of them are intransitive, like Qa'im. It's formed from an intransitive verb. But all of them can have ismul fa'il. How is ismul fa'il formed? The masculine singular is fa'il. The feminine is fa'ilatun. With few exceptions. There's always going to be some exceptions just to keep it interesting. Right? The exception is if there is a feminine that has no corresponding masculine. In that case, the extra syllable is considered to be unneeded. So, what are some examples of things that women do that men don't do? Don't say, for example, cook or something, because that will not be acceptable. But one example is hamil, meaning pregnant. Right? The Arabs didn't conceive of a future where men would get pregnant. Hopefully we won't see that future as well either. But hamil is exclusive to women. It's a trait that does not belong to men. So hamil does not need a ta, because the word can only apply to a woman. Now notice that hamil can also mean a carrier, somebody who's carrying something. And if it's used in that sense, it can be both hamil and hamila. So if I'm saying that he is a carrier of books and she is a carrier, well, in that sense, the same word can be both masculine and feminine. But in the sense of pregnant, it's only going to be feminine. The same thing is murdi', right? A nurse, a wet nurse. That's also something that is exclusively something that women do, and therefore it does not need a ta' marbuta. So if you remember the hadith that's attributed to the day of Ashura, when Imam Hussein's young son was killed by the enemy, then it said that a voice came from the sky and said, Ya Hussein, da'hu, O Hussein, leave him, فَإِنَّ, I'm writing the sentence because many of you might have heard it. لَهُ مُرْضِعًا فِي الْجَنَّةِ. فَإِنَّ لَهُ, for verily, for him, or he has, مُرْضِعًا, a nurse, fil Jannah, in paradise. Murdi'an would refer to a nurse, so it's feminine, but there's no ta, because it's always feminine. And that's not a fa'il form, but it's the same principle. We'll explain that in a future lesson. One other thing in the sentence, inna. Do you remember back to inna? Way back when we had the discussion of inna? Remember that inna needs an ism and a khabar, and the ism of inna is mansoob, and the khabar of inna is marfu. Well, here, murdi'an is the ism, that's why it's mansoob. And lahu is the khabar. It's come first. But lahu is not a single word, so you don't see the i'rab on it, it's a phrase. But inna murdi'an, verily, a nurse, lahu, is for him. That's the normal order that you would expect.
Does it mean to be a nurse, or like she is a nurse?
A person who is a nurse. A nurse in the sense of what nurse? Somebody, a woman who is feeding a child, not a nurse like in a hospital setting. The fa'il, the plural, one of the plural forms for fa'il is fa'ala. So when we say qatala, that is the plural of qatil. Right? Marada is the plural of marid. Yes, it's masculine plural. Marid is somebody who rebels. Marada, the rebels. Fasaqa is the plural of fasiq. Fasiqun or fasaqa can both be used. And fajara. But it's not only for bad things. So barara is the plural of bar, which is a good person. Bar is also fa'il. It's just that it's combined. Okay, so fa'il, fa'ila. The dual is fa'ilane, fa'ilaine, like any other dual in masculine. Fa'ilatane, fa'ilataine in the feminine. And then the plural will be fa'iluna, fa'ilina, fa'ilat, and fa'ilatun, and fa'ilatin in the feminine. Now, the usage of ismul fa'il, it can mean currently doing something, and it can mean something that is going to happen in the future. So, just like in English, when I say I am coming, it can have two meanings. I am coming meaning literally right now I am coming, or I will come. Right? And how do I know which one is intended? Context. I am coming might mean that I'm on the way. It might mean that I will come in the future.
So qatil can be killer, also can be he is killer.
So when it's used in a sentence, qatil can mean he is doing it. If I say huwa qatil, he is killing, or he will kill, or it can be he is a killer. Those are three different translations that you might need to use.
He is a killer means it's an ismul fa'il.
It's in that case, in all cases, it's ism al-fa'il. But in the case of he is a killer, it's not really used with a sense of the verb. It's used as a noun. Right? And in that sense, you can use it even after the person has done the killing. So when it's used as a verb, right? I can only say huwa qatilun in terms of the action being committed. Because it's used with a sense of a verb. But when I say huwa qatil, then qatil becomes a label for that person. And it's used almost as a noun. So it can mean killing in the sense of doing the action now or in the future or whatever. Or it can be killer, which is used just as a label for a person. And it can be used in all of those senses. So if I say huwa katib, it could mean he is a writer. Or it could mean he is writing. Or it could mean he will write. So for example, huwa sajidun lillah, he is bowing, he is prostrating to God. Or he will prostrate. Hiya katibatun bil qalam, she is writing or will write. Kana sajidan lillah, this is in the past, so the meaning will be more clear. He was prostrating.
I have a question. Forgive me for this, I should really talk to you. The huwa comes before the sajid. Does it matter? I forget. Does it matter if it comes before? Does it have to come before or does it come after?
Huwa sajid. So you want to say sajid huwa? Normally, the huwa will be the mubtada and sajid is the khabar. Because huwa is a definite noun and sajid is indefinite. So normally the mubtada will come first.
My brain is telling me the bowing is a verb. That's
No, it's not a verb.
yeah, exactly. That's what.
It's a noun here. So this is huwa sajid does not contain a verb at all. He is a prostrator. Because and the confusion comes because the ing form in English is a verb. But in Arabic it's a noun. So you might translate it as a verb, but it's a noun in Arabic. He is bowing or prostrating.
Why do we need sajid?
Sajada would mean in the past. For the present, you would have to say yasjudu. And you could say yasjudu. There is a slight difference in meaning between yasjudu and sajid. The verb indicates the continual, the renewal of an action. And sajid refers to the person being somebody from whom the action has come. So that's something that is discussed in the science of rhetoric or eloquence in Arabic. When do you use the verb and when do you use ism al-fa'il? There is a place for each, and it's a very small difference. But you could use the verb as well. So anytime you see hiya katibatun, you could say hiya taktub. And the meaning will be very similar. Hiya katiba, she writes, or she is writing, or she is a writer. Hiya taktub, she writes. Question? He is a prostrator to Allah. Yes, it can be translated as that. So these words, they have related meanings, and all of these meanings are related, but sometimes one translation will fit better, either with the ing form or with the er form as an active participle. Whichever fits better in the translation you can use. كانت كاتبة بالقلم. She was writing with the pen. Hum fiha khalidun. Hum khalidun. They are eternal, or eternally residing in it. Down here it should be ismul fa'il. So you can delete that lam alif. Ismul fa'il can also be used for the subject as a noun. And that's what we talked about, that when you will translate it as an, say, ER form of the verb. So, Aliyun katibun, Ali is a writer or scribe. Katibul wahi, he is a scribe of revelation. Kana Allahu shakiran aliman, Allah was grateful, all-knowing. Inna Allaha ma'as sabirin, Allah is with the patient or the steadfast. Questions? Now, a verb can take an object, right? Ismul fa'il, when it's used with the sense of a verb, it can also take an object. So I can say Zaydun Nasirun Amran. Zayd is helping Amr. Or Zayd is a helper of Amr. What does that sentence say? Inni fa'ilun dhalika ghadan. That's something that a believer, according to the Quran, will never say. Because we never know what we're going to do tomorrow unless we say, inshallah. Inni fa'ilun dhalika ghadan. Verily, I will do that tomorrow. So, inni, verily, the ism of inna is the ya, verily I, fa'ilun, this is the khabar, am a doer. Verily I am a doer. A doer of what? Dhalika. That's the maf'ul bih, the direct object. Inni fa'ilun dhalika. I am a doer of that. That dhalika could refer to salat or to writing or whatever. Ghadan, tomorrow. So, inni fa'ilun dhalika, I am doing that. Dhalika, now it's a mabni verb, so it doesn't change, but it's mansoob. It's maf'ul bih, so it has the mansoob case. And other examples we have on the next page. نحن دارسون الدرس or الدرس العاشرة. We are studiers, or we are studying الدرس العاشرة, the 10th lesson. So الدرس العاشرة is مفعول به, direct object. Of what verb? دارسون. It's not idafa, right? If it had been idafa, number one, it would have been ad-darsi. It would have been majroor. But ad-dars is mansoob. And even if the i'rab of dars is not written, you still know it's not an idafa. How? because darisun has a noon. If it were idafa, darisun would lose the noon. So it's not really saying we are studiers of the 10th lesson. It's we are studying the 10th lesson. And you could say, نحن ندرس الدرس العاشرة. You could use the verb in place of darisun and it would mean the same thing. And the famous verse of Quran, which is an excellent example of that. إِنِّي جَاعِلُكَ لِلنَّاسِ إِمَامًا. Don't get confused by جَاعِلُكَ. That's idafa there. Maker of you. Allah is speaking to Ibrahim alayhi salam. I am a maker of you, or I am making you imaman. Leader, imam. For people.
Maybe simple. Usually what can we say ashara? Maybe
ashara means 10, and 10th as an ordinal number is ashir. So there's numbers that are called cardinal numbers, which is 1, 2, 3, 4, 5. And then there are ordinal numbers, 1st, 2nd, 3rd, 4th. Ashir is ordinal. That's also ismul fa'il. Because ashir means the one that makes something the 10. The 10 maker. Because if you have 9 people, the 10th person that comes is the one that makes them 10. Right? The Quran says that there are no 2 people who engage in a secret conversation except that Allah is the third. Third meaning the one that makes them 3. Because there's 2 of us whispering and Allah is also there. He makes the total number 3. Right? Or 3, except that Allah is the 4th, the one that makes them 4. Now, the active participle or ismul fa'il that exists for all verbs. Some verbs also can have ismul maf'ul, which is the passive participle. Some verbs. Yes, it's only a transitive verb that can have ismul maf'ul. If the verb doesn't have a direct object, then it won't have an ismul maf'ul, because ismul maf'ul denotes the recipient of the action of that verb. So if you look at the examples, mashkur, the one who is given thanks. Shakira is a transitive verb, that's why we can say shakir, the thanksgiver, and mashkur, the thanksgiven. Mawjood comes from the word wajada. Wajada is a transitive verb, to find. Right? So wajid, the finder, mawjood, the one that is found. It's also used for existence. But existence because it's found in the universe. Mab'uth, right? It's from ba'atha. It's transitive. Ba'id, sender. Mab'uth, sendee, the one sent. The same patterns exist for the feminine as well. So we say maf'ul, maf'ulatun for the feminine. The dual, maf'ulane and maf'ulaine for the masculine. Maf'ulatane, maf'ulataine for the feminine. The plural will be maf'ulun, maf'ulin for the masculine. Maf'ulatun and maf'ulatin for the feminine. Now the major ways that ismul maf'ul will be used, one is to describe a noun. So you can say shaitan, Satan, and then you can describe him by saying al-marjum, the one who is literally stoned or cast away. So shaitan al-marjum. Rajim and marjum have the same meaning, literally. Yawmun ma'loom, a day that is known. Now those two examples are sifa and mawsuf, and then the sifa. Right? Ash-shaytan is definite, so al-marjum is definite. Yawm is indefinite. Ma'loom is indefinite. But that same pattern can be used in a sentence, which would be with mubtada and khabar. And when we have mubtada and khabar, then of course the mubtada will be definite and the khabar will be indefinite. We'll say an-nisa'u mahfudat. The women are protected. Or with kana. In the case of kana now, the ism will be marfu' and the khabar will be not marfu' but mansoob. So we'll say kana rajulani, and now the khabar will be mansoob. Maqtulaini. We won't say maqtulani. We'll say maqtulaini. That's just a review of how we use kana. Remember that? Why don't we write that sentence down? So the basic sentence that we start out with is ar-rajulani maqtulani. Right? The two men are killed. Right? Ar-rajulan mubtada, maqtulan is what? Khabar. They're both marfu'. Correct? Marfu'. And this is also marfu'. If I add kana, ar-rajulan will stay marfu' because it's the ism of kana. But maqtulan will become the khabar of kana and therefore it will become mansoob. Right? Maqtulaini. If I yes. And if I add inna, in this case, that maqtulane will stay maqtulane, but the ism of inna will become mansoob. Inna rajulaini. Inna rajulaini maqtulan. I want to finish this material right now, but if you remind me next week we can talk about a verse of Quran that has confused some grammarians and it's been read a few different ways, where we can look at some of the issues that come with the use of inna in this type of sentence. So if that sounds exciting, then you have something to look forward to next week. The other meaning for the ismul maf'ul, and it's also for verbs itself, is to refer to something that is worthy of being done. So we say shay'un madhkur, a thing worth mentioning. Does anybody remember anywhere in the Quran where that type of use exists? Where? Surah Dahr or Surah Insan. I thought you said Surah Duha. I'm sorry. So Surah Insan, where Allah says that هَلْ أَتَى عَلَى الْإِنسَانِ حِينٌ مِنَ الدَّهْرِ لَمْ يَكُنْ شَيْئًا مَذْكُورًا. Has there come upon people a time, or was there ever a time, when they were not something mentioned? Something mentioned meaning something worth mentioning or something mentionable. Right? You might be familiar with the use of the word ma'qul. Ma'qul does not mean literally understood, but it means something that is understandable. If it's not ma'qul, it's not worthy of being understood. It's not understandable. You're not saying specifically it was not understood in this case, but that it's not understandable. Aqala means to understand, to comprehend. Ma'qul can mean comprehended or comprehensible. Masmu' can mean heard or worth hearing. Yes, it's not universal, but that's one sense in which ismul maf'ul will sometimes be used, and sometimes the verb itself will be used that way. So you'll sometimes use the passive verb in that way as well. So you can say, for example, lahu fadlun la yunkar, from inkar. La yunkar, that is not denied. He has a virtue of fadl, la yunkar, that's not denied. Not that it's not denied right now, but that it's not deniable. It isn't to be denied. It's not worthy of being denied. So the verb or the ismul fa'il could be used to that. And one other usage of ismul fa'il is that sometimes in Arabic, when you want to say somebody said, you just use the ismul fa'il that's derived from that same verb itself. So you can say fa'ala fa'ilun, doers did, right? Or some people did. Qala qa'ilun, a sayer said. And that can be definite. You can say qala al-qa'ilu, the sayer said, or that the person said.
So you can say either way doesn't make a difference. Or does it make a difference if you use
Well, you'll use the al if the person has been referred to somewhere else. So I can say, for example, qama shakhsun wa qala, somebody stood up and said, thumma qala al-qa'il, and then that sayer said. Okay, let's introduce the topic of hal. We may not be able to finish it depending on how much time it takes us, but we should be able to get through a good amount of it. In Arabic, there is a form that is used to express the state or the condition in which an action is done, and that's known as hal. Hal means state or condition. There's another meaning of hal which is not madi, not mustaqbal, but hal, present. It's a different meaning. Here we're not referring to the present tense, but we're referring to the state or condition in which the hala, the state in which an action is being done. And grammatically, the hal will be mansub. Every hal will have what is known as a dhul hal, the owner of the hal, the person it's referring to. That can be the subject, it can be the object. You have to know which one it's referring to. So if I say Daraba Zaydun Amran Zaliman. Zaliman here is the ha. Zayd hit Amr in the hal or in the condition that he was oppressing. So Zaliman here is mansub, not because it's an object, but because it is hal, the condition in which the action was done. That hal refers to the condition of the action. It must have a dhul hal, somebody that it refers to, the referent. What is the dhul hal in this sentence? It could be Amr, in which case it would mean that Zayd hit Amr in the state that Amr was oppressive. But it could also be Zayd. Zayd hit Amr in the state that Zayd was oppressive. Context will tell us which is which.
It's like an adjective to describe it.
Well, can I say that it's an adjective? In this case, can I say that Zaliman is an adjective or a sifa for Amr? Is that possible?
No, but it's acting in that way. Like describing that.
Yes, it has an adverbial sense. I can't say it's an adjective. Why? Because Amran is a definite noun. Zaliman is an indefinite noun, so it can't be an adjective. If it had been ad-zalima, then it would have been an adjective. But here it's an adjective. It's a hal. Now, the meaning is related because an adjective also tells something about the noun that it refers to. So, let's say that we didn't have the word Amran. Let's say it was just Daraba Zaydun Zaliman. Zayd hit in a state that he was oppressive. Right? Zayd hit while he was being unjust. I could have said Daraba Zaydun ad-Zalimu. That would have been an adjective. Zayd, the oppressor, hit. But there's a difference between Zayd, the oppressor, hit, and Daraba Zaydun Zaliman. Zayd hit while he was oppressive. What's the difference? Sulaiman, the oppressor, can hit you fairly. Right? I'm oppressive, but you cheated in our race, and so I hit you with full justification. But I'm still zalim, because I'm oppressive elsewhere. This is the point in time. The state of the action of the verb. If I say Zaydun Zaliman, Daraba Zaydun Zaliman, Zayd hit while he was oppressive, but he might not be oppressive elsewhere. Right? So I can say that Daraba Zaydun Rakiban, while he was riding on a horse. Right? But he might not be a rider outside of that state. So hal indicates the action. It could be for the subject, it could be for the object. Some cases the context will make it clear, or the agreement will make it clear. Hal will never say never in Arabic, but hal will usually not have an alif lam.
And the dhul hal doesn't have a case.
The dhul hal will have a case. If it's the fa'il, it will be marfu. If it is, the dhul hal does not have a case because of the ha. The dhul hal has a case because of what it is in the sentence. It might be a fa'il, or it might be a maf'ul, or it might be majroor. Now, hal will usually or often be a single word. If it's a single word, then you will see the mansoob case with a fatha usually, or whatever the mansoob case will be. So you can say, sajadtu laka, I prostrated for you, O Allah. Khadi'an, khashi'an, dhalilan. 3 different hals. So, humbly, meekly, lowly, basically. They all mean the same thing, or similar meanings. رأيت مريم وزينب مستعجلتين. Now notice that here, مستعجلتين is dual, because it's referring to Zainab and Maryam. It's feminine because Maryam and Zainab are feminine names. And the way that I show mansoob in the dual is to take the ya noon ending. مستعجلتان, مستعجلتين. So, مستعجلتين is mansoob. ذهب طلحة وحده مشكورا. وحده is also hard. مشكورا is also hard. Talha went وحده while he was alone. مشكورا while he was thanked. Many of us use these words incorrectly. Mashkur is one word that people often use incorrectly. Mashkur is ismul maf'ul, the one who is thanked. So if you are grateful to somebody, you will never say mashkur. You will say shakir. So he was being thanked. He was being thanked. The reason why people use that mashkur wrong is because they want to rhyme it or use it with mamnoon. Mamnoon is the one who is shown a favor. So man, the shower of the favor. Mamnoon, the one who is shown a favor. And so people think that, well, we'll use mamnoon and mashkur. But they don't go together. Because mamnoon is, the doer is the one showing doing the favor. But shakir, the one who is giving the thanks, is the doer. So you should say that I am mamnoon and shakir. It destroys the rhyme of it, but at the very least it's grammatically correct and it makes sense. Or you can say mashkur in the sense of shakir and say that that's an exception that we're going to apply to the rule. There's other words as well. People say mashkuk, meaning doubtful, doubting. Shakka means to doubt. The person who doubts is shak. And the thing that you doubt is mashkuk fi. So you don't say that I am mashkuk. Right? Unless you want to say that somebody should doubt you because you're not worthy of being trusted. Right? You are shak, the one who is doubting. That's another case of idgham. So shakka, right? Fa'il would be shakik. Right? And then we have idgham, shak. That becomes shak. Right? Dhalla, to be misguided, ismul fa'il will be dhal. Right? Dhal. Let me write that down. So we have the verb dhalla, to get misguided. The ismul fa'il would be fa'il, dhalil, right? But we do idgham, it becomes dhalun. And the plural will be dhalun or dhalin. Some of us might have seen dhalin before. وَلَا الضَّالِّينَ, the Quran. The rest of us have also seen it before, inshallah, as well. لا يختل الناس بظاهره. He doesn't disturb. Actually, I'm sorry, that example should not be there. Let's cross out that example. لا يختل الناس. We'll make that correction, inshallah. خرج منها خائفا, that is hal. What is the dhul hal there? Yes, it's the huwa. The dhul hal cannot be the ha, that pronoun that you can see minha, in the first place because it means that he left the city, Egypt, right? And the city is not fearful. In the second place, ha is a feminine pronoun and kha'ifan is masculine. So that cannot be the dhul hal. So this is referring to Musa. Kharaja huwa, meaning Musa, minha, from Egypt, kha'ifan, in a state of fear. Correct? وَتَرَكُوكَ قَائِمًا, and they leave you qa'iman, standing. What is the dhul hal there? Well, it's not hum, because they're not leaving you while they're standing. They're running. Right? Because this is the Prophet standing up, giving a khutbah, and the Muslims decide to run and find out what's on sale, for the Black Friday special in Medina. And this is one of those verses that really challenges people who think that all of the companions were at that high level. It takes quite a despicable person to abandon a prophet while he's giving his sermon. In any case, you, right, which is the ka. Tarakuka, there's two pronouns there. U, which is the fa'il, and ka, which is the maf'ul. Qa'iman refers to the maf'ul. Do you understand that? Because it's the one who is being left standing. Tarakuka, they leave you. There's two people involved, two groups. They and you. Qa'iman is the hal of the Prophet. He's left there holding the speech alone. Right? If it were the hal of the people, then it would have been, for example, Tarakuka musri'een, rushing. Right? Or Tarakuka rakideen, running. Something like that. That would be their state. Tarakuka lahina, in a state of lahu, in a state of distraction. So that would be their hal. Qa'iman is the hal of the Prophet. He's standing there to give his khutbah. And then there's an example where there's no verb. Hada ba'li shaykhan. This is my husband, an old man. There's Quranic sanction for women to call their husbands an old man. Hada ba'li shaykhan, if it's true. This is my husband in the state that he is an old man. Of course, ba'al is a very respectful word in Arabic. So if there is sanction, then it's also sanctioned to say so. It's a noun. Ba'al is a noun. And originally, apparently, it was an idol. Ba'al. That ba'al, yes, the idol that was worshipped. It's also used for husband. Who is not worshipped? One should not be worshipped. And sometimes you can have a phrase in idafa, I have to say that, my wife is in the class. That is a ha. So you can say يكتب علي مثل المدرس. مثل المدرس, that is a mudaf and a mudaf ilay. And mithla is ha. Right? Ali writes in the state that he is like a teacher. And why don't we end there for now? Please do take a look at the lesson, the exercises at the end of the lesson. You should be able to do a portion of that. We'll see if we're able to get through some of the exercises, or perhaps we'll wait maybe until after next week to do the exercises and do lessons 10 and 11 together if we can finish them. Go ahead and take a look at them and do them. Yeah, try to do them. Many of them you should be able to get through. Let's conclude with salawat.
So another question.